Yeah, so I'm here with Iain Murray, who's not often in Australia, often in America, most of the time in San Francisco, doing your real job, your day job, head of America's Cup Race Management. But you're down here today, Double Bay, beginning the 18-foot skiff season. You've obviously had, for many years, a close association with Seve and this particular boat, and this boat has got the biggest rig we've ever seen on 18-foot skiff. Can you just tell us, first of all, bearing in mind how dominant this boat was last season under your watchful eye even then, why have you done this development this year when you already had a jump on the fleet?
Well, I guess in all sorts of sports where you're allowed development, you try to make things better, and I guess as one of the great things in sailing is that we learn things all the time, and materials change, and types of sailcloth and different carbon fibres, and it's fair to say, I think we've learned things, and we're trying to make the sail a little bit bigger and a little less drag, and just try to stay a little bit ahead.
And what's your initial impressions? This is the first competitive outing for this rig. What are your first thoughts?
Well, I think look, a couple of things broke today, but look, I think the signs are that it looks pretty good, and I was happy. So, there's a lot of things to tidy up and things that aren't right, and it's not quite finished, but it's a good place to start and go out, and we've got to get confidence for the guys to work with it and know how to use it, and a little bit more to develop and finish and tidy up, and hopefully it'll be good. I think it looks good.
Well, talking of tidying up and finishing, back to San Francisco. Clearly it's been a fairly dramatic week or two involved with America's Cup stuff. Just from your perspective, I'm not sure how much you saw of it, but how wise a decision was it for Oracle to be out on a day of 30 knots of breeze on what I think is only their 8th day of their 30th allowed, only day 8? How wise a call was that?
Well, look, Jimmy's not the sort of guy that takes a step back from anything really, and he elected to go out, and pretty strong winds and very strong tides, and and push the boat. Obviously, in hindsight, it was probably the wrong decision, but that's sooner or later they're going to have to race in those sort of winds, and maybe they should have taken a little bit slower and felt their way into it, but it's a very unfortunate situation. Now they're going to lose a lot of time sailing, and a big distraction for the defender of the Cup.
And clearly no injuries, which is obviously the good news of this situation. But in terms of that bad news, I mean, how big a setup? Can you just give us some kind of a scorecard? I mean, how bad a thing was that to happen objectively?
Well, they were allowed to sail 30 days with the boats before February, and they've sailed 8 days, and they're going to lose 22. So, 22 days sailing at this time of the of a campaign is invaluable, and as we all know, you can have all the money in the world, but you can't buy time. So, look, they're smart guys, and obviously it's a setback. Time will tell in the end, how big a setback it is, I guess. We'll just have to see how they use the time effectively and make up for that lost time of the water. They do have plenty of 45s and development work, and they've got great boat building and research guys and skills, so they're not going to lay down and go, oh, that's it. They'll use the time very effectively.
And one of the things I guess you'd have to say is it's advantage Kiwis at this point.
Well, the Kiwis are out there, they're burning up the ocean and sailing every day without incident. In the end of the day, we've always known the Kiwis are going to be there with a strong boat and a strong crew, and going to be very competitive on the race course, and they haven't disappointed anyone at this stage.
Now, when it comes to the actual Louis Vuitton series in July and then the real racing in September, there may or may not be 30 knots of wind on the racetrack. Will you actually start a race if it is 30 knots with those short, sharp seas we get in San Francisco?
Well, we'll just have to see how it looks at that time. It's a prerogative of the race committee to not sail, and if they think it's a dangerous situation. But the America's Cup is slated down to sail in winds up to 33 knots. The challengers have elected to only sail in 25 knots in their Challengers selection series, but that's still a lot of wind, and a really big difference is whether the tide's coming in or going out in San Francisco. And if it's a day like it was for Oracle, where you're getting 4 and 5 knots of tide against wind, it can be pretty nasty.
Any safety issues that have come to light following that experience?
Oh, look, I think there's a lot to be learned in the whole safety procedure and what goes on the boats. You know, the boats are going very fast, up to 40 knots, and to capsize and have people stranded on 2mm netting, you know, 50, 60 feet out of the water with a whole lot of nasty things to fall on is pretty terrifying. So, look, there's a big review, I think, of everyone, all the teams, and we're certainly reviewing, and the Coast Guard's standing by, and look, there will be things to come out of this.
But if it's blowing 25 knots and there's a steep sea, as far as you're concerned, America's Cup racing is on.
Game on.
Thanks, Iain.
Thank you.